I think in the beginning there is a lot of hard work, long weeks, but that's not different from, you know, the life that we live these days.
Welcome to the Founder Real Talk podcast by Wisdom Partners, where we interview real founders on the real journey of starting and building a company. So we're not primarily doing this to provide answers, although you may get some of that. This isn't chest thumping about how people created overnight unicorns through their own genius and Red Bull. We're here to pull back the mask and explore the authentic experiences, the bumps in the road for everyday founders in the trenches of building and scaling a company. So I'm your host, Josh Broward, and today's guest is Ricardo Berrios of Adhera Health. And we met in the backyard at a backyard barbecue in Palo Alto over some excellent ribs and brisket. We just happened to be seated at the same table almost 2 years ago. And
about a year and a half. Yep.
yeah, so we've been friends and colleagues since then, and I'm so excited about what Ricardo's building. Ricardo and his team are building with Adhera Health. I just heard they won an award for the AI in the AI health space. They are really leveraging AI to work in the intersection of digital health, social determinants of health, family systems, and chronic conditions. So leveraging the power of artificial intelligence to manage that big data in all these different settings to help it, specifically their sort of beachhead is to help families with kids with chronic conditions have better health and life outcomes. So I think it's fantastic. I used to work at Kaiser Permanente, and this is the kind of stuff that would get people there really excited. So I'm glad to have you on, Ricardo. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, well, thanks, Josh. First and foremost, because as you said, our friendship now goes beyond the business side, and this is one of the things that I love about the Silicon Valley and in the Bay Area, is that is not. I mean, everybody thinks about technology. Obviously, we are a cradle of technology innovation, but at the same time, is the relationships that get built over time that last then decades. And in my case, I've met incredible, talented individuals that are also great people, and I'm glad that you consider me part of your, friendship and family environment, because I feel the same about you. And that may be a little bit, sounds too personal, but the truth of the matter is that life is very personal. And in our case, founders that spend day and night thinking about how we are going to be able to get our vision to market, our life is intertwined with our work.
Can you give a little bit more of an intro to Adhera Health? How and where did you guys get started?
Yeah, Adhera Health is born out of a need that the other co-founder of the company, Dr. Luis Fernandez Luque, and myself saw around the pandemic, and it's that there is a lack of connectivity between what families living with chronic conditions have to endure and how they can leverage the healthcare system to support them in that journey. And that was one of the realizations. The other realization is that many times technology can become an obstacle to provide better care for families, for patients, and also is many times a challenge, and I've seen that in my career, to the providers of that care, clinicians and otherwise. So Luis and I started thinking, based on his background as a computer scientist applied to healthcare, my background as an entrepreneur that had spent 20 years working in healthcare and building technology companies with other great people to address some specific challenges in healthcare, for the most part in the hospital environment, operational efficiencies, we saw that there was an opportunity for us to build something greater than just a technology company that would help some operational needs in the ecosystem, but be able to join that obvious need to be efficient in the system, reduce costs for the system, but also improve the quality of serving those patients. And we saw an opportunity to bridge that with a different approach. And our approach was that instead of looking at a patient as an individual part of the system, we started doing research on how we could look at the family as a complete set that has a huge impact on the outcome of the patients in those families. And specifically, because of our own background and without getting into the personal stories of Luis and myself, but because of a background in our families, in the experiences that we have lived, we thought that addressing pediatric chronic care from the perspective of a family approach was going to have a better outcome than just looking at that specific child on the journey in that condition. That was the genesis. I wanted to also validate our hypothesis with real world evidence. So we started working on the development of studies and projects where we were gathering evidence that what we were developing, the digital platform that we started developing, would actually have outcomes that were measurable scientifically on the improvement of the health of these children, together with the improvement of the mental health of the caregivers. And that is another, for many times, forgotten area, which is, family caregivers live with incredible stresses due to the everyday life challenges that we all have. But on top of that, you layer having a child living with a chronic condition, type 1 diabetes, growth hormone disorder, cancer, etc., that is exacerbated. So that's where we started working on it. And we have evolved from that evidence that we have taken a look at and applied then onto the development of our latest platform. And what we have right now, just to give you a current situation, is what we call an Empathic AI platform that is providing a family-centered chronic care management for those children.
I know you guys you're already running some parts of your system. They've been in use in Spain for several years, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, because Luis started his career in Europe, and he's been, bouncing from Europe to the Middle East to the United States. He's working in many different geographies. But because our scientific team started in Europe, we started testing our solutions in the European market, not only Spain, but also in the UK and other Northern European countries. And that's where we developed part of the evidence. But we also then, because we are a Silicon Valley company, we started then developing partnerships in the United States, a larger market with a huge opportunity, but at the same time, different connotations health industry wise. So we are working on both environments to develop this evidence and to develop the best possible solutions for the goal that we have of empowering these families living with chronic conditions.
So what's a win you've had in the last year that you're really proud of?
Well, I mean, first of all, is a team. You mentioned that. We're very lucky that we have a highly dedicated team that is made out of multiple disciplines. So we have psychologists, MDs, data scientists, AI engineers, operational experts that all together have been able to develop this new platform, this Empathic AI platform. Well, we are in the process of obviously developing this platform. That's why we're a startup. But this team is an incredible team, passionate and committed to change the way pediatric chronic care conditions are addressed. So I'm very proud of that. Secondly, I think that the challenges that we face are also the speed of movement in technology. So we have been always very clear that artificial intelligence has to be developed in a way that is ethical and also that is responsible. And we have within our team a specific PhD focus on making sure that our models, small language models that we are developing, are going to be responsible. So I'm very proud of that part of the responsibility in our solutions. I'm also very happy to have developed great partnerships with healthcare providers here in the United States, in addition to the ones that we continue to develop in Europe, because what it shows, to at least to me, is that if the clinicians trust what we are doing in our approach, it means that we are going to have a positive impact, not only on the patients that they are supporting, but also on their own daily lives. And I'm happy, very happy and proud of the progress that we've done there. And you mentioned at the end, or in the beginning, you mentioned the award that we just won a few weeks ago. It was a very interesting situation because in health is moving pretty rapidly, and it's, the best or the top applications today are more in the operational efficiency area of the hospital systems. That's where the initial AI has been implemented, but it's moving into the patient engagement and patient care. We can talk about predictions, but I think that we're going to see a lot of that in the next 12 months developing. And I'm proud to say that we went to this competition in this AI Med in San Diego, which is one of the top events for AI in health, with incredible presenters, incredible tracks. And we competed against top AI in health companies, startups in the United States. And we were fortunate to be given the first prize as the top solution. And I truly believe that is a testament to our approach. But I think that family-centered solutions is one of the gateways to improve challenges that we have today in the healthcare system. And so that was a validation of both that approach and also the development of our own empathic AI agents that are different from the generic agents that are coming to market, and where we are applying all the R&D that we've have been doing over the past few years. We're applying it to develop a different kind of AI.
Great. Congratulations, by the way. I'm glad.
Thank you.
I'm glad the world is seeing what we've been talking about for the past year and a half, and I look forward to where this goes next. So here's a next question, kind of on the other end of the spectrum. One thing we like to say on our team is wisdom is failure redeemed. We all, our company name is Wisdom Partners, and there's a bit of that can sound a little arrogant. Yeah, we have the wisdom, but for us, it's battle scars. So how would you be willing to share a mistake or a misstep that you took as a leader, and what wisdom you have learned or earned from that process, the recovery process?
How long do we have?
Just one mistake.
Well, I would say that I need to talk about a little bit about my career, because I started in the early 2000s with my first startup that I did it together with two other amazing entrepreneurs. In Draco was one of them, and I was starting to learn there that you have some ideas of what the market will accept or will welcome, and then there is a big gap between your vision and the execution of that vision into something that is sustainable. That is a challenge, a recurring challenge, sustainability of your idea. I would say that execution in the next startup that I did, execution became a trademark of the company, and that company ended up doing really well. We were also fortunate enough to be able to have a nice exit with a multi-billion-dollar company that acquired us. And again, there I saw the same trait, that execution on the day-to-day to get to the vision is the biggest challenge. And if you're able to optimize to that, then you are in good shape. So I would say the mistakes are exactly that. Like in our case, we've done in the last company which is Adhera Health right now, my latest company. We've done a lot of great things in the R&D area of building evidence that our platform has some specific outcomes that are incredibly sustainable. So that is great, but then it's still, you need to connect that with the market. And there is why, in our case, we had to do some modifications from the R&D that we were developing onto the product that we thought was going to leverage that R&D to where we have moved to into our Empathic AI agentic framework in the past 12 months. And again, the same, I would call mistake comes to play, which is that you visualize a timeline, but then the execution on that timeline many times doesn't meet the needs that the company will have to be able to succeed in the market. So I would say that that's a recurrent mistake, that it is controllable, and I have been able to do it in those startups, but it remains a challenge every time that you start a company. You really have to understand the dynamics of each market, and that's why it's different to do a startup in Spain than it is to do it in the United States. And in our case, that we are working in two different markets from the perspective of the research that we are doing and the commercialization, which is the next step after the research. I believe that it multiplies the challenge, but at the same time, talent today is a global asset, and there's incredibly talented individuals in other parts of the world that, if you execute well, you can bring that talent or the output of that talent onto a larger market like the United States.
If you were able to rewind time, what would you do differently over the last few years with Adhera Health?
The timing of the development of our platform and the testing of that platform in the market that ultimately we want to conquer, which is the United States. Because our talent was, for the most part, the scientists were based in Europe, we spent a good deal of time developing projects like partnerships and implementations and testing in an ecosystem that was different or is different from the ecosystem in the United States. So if I could rewind things, I would accelerate the partnerships in the United States so that we will be able to get the same real world evidence that we developed in Europe, that we will have had it in the United States first or earlier. In that, I am pretty certain that will have given us also a lot of input on the product direction. That is a key area that is, again, very dependent on the geographic market that you're going to end up putting that product on.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
As you think back over the last few years, what are some of the best professional investments that you've made?
I'm a true believer in continuous education. The reality today is that we are in what some people call the fifth industrial revolution, which is what happens beyond AI or with the applicability of this new paradigm of artificial intelligence applied to all these different industries. Continuous education has been one of the things that I've always put a lot of emphasis, but not only for myself, also for my teammates. And one of the corollaries to that is that when we started at Adhera Health, soon after, I started seeking out advice and input from experts in the industry. We're talking about folks in our advisory board that come from the healthcare industry, but they also come from the technology industry and also the regulatory industry. And the reason why I did that is exactly for that goal of continuous education, and knowing that you really, as a founder, you have a lot of blind spots, and I still have blind spots, and I think it's part of the funding paradigm, and is that you spend a lot of time trying to understand, what that vision is insofar of the applicability of the vision in the market. And there's not enough time in many occasions to be able to continue learning on your own about areas that will ultimately be impactful to the success of the company. So I would say that that's been the biggest growth, is that in specifically what we are, which is very fast moving area, which is AI, that has required incredible amounts of studying, networking with experts, and be able to synthesize a lot of knowledge that is out there applied to the goal that you have in your company.
Great, thank you. What's the biggest challenge you're trying to solve right now?
I'm trying to make ends meet. I mean, big visions, and I have no doubt that what we are doing is ultimately how the healthcare industry will solve a lot of the challenges, which is our approach of taking the family as a whole. And the system is going to have to understand that there's a lot of great efficiencies in being able to have a full picture that will make treatments, implementation of plans, of health plans, etc., much more efficient, cost effective, and higher impact. So, the challenge is, to be able to make that vision turn into a reality. But that's what we are doing here on a daily basis.
And when you think about other seed stage founders out there, what's one of the best pieces of advice you would give them?
I would say that every founder is got its own daily challenges. Every company startup is in a different stage. Piggyback on the question that you asked earlier about, what are the biggest challenges? What I said earlier is directly connected with the timing of your vision to that market. And timing equals money. So, it's the first time I'm using that term in this conversation, but ultimately, how much cash you can access in an early stage of the company will also drive the speed of execution of that vision. So my advice to any of the founder would be that always keep that vision contrasted with the resources needed to make that vision happen. And evidently, the people are key and are primarily what is going to make you succeed. And the support from external sources, financing, as I said earlier, advising, mentoring, all of that ecosystem that is not only the money, but the money obviously is in a critical aspect. But I think I'm stating the obvious.
All right. So if somebody out there is listening and they'd like to support Adhera's mission, how can they help? What intros are you looking for? Who are you trying to meet? What would be helpful for you guys?
Yeah, we actually have this vision of the empathic artificial intelligence agentic framework that we have no doubt has an incredible application across different areas of the ecosystem, where there are healthcare providers or payers or other, and therefore we see more than a $300 billion opportunity for our platform in the next few years. So what we need now is to find partners, what I described earlier, advisors, mentors, and partners that believe in that vision, that believe in the market opportunity, and ultimately are willing to come and support that vision with their own financial capabilities. So currently, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some true believers that understand the opportunity, incredible opportunity in this specialized empathic AI framework. It can be executed in its full opportunity.
And because you've been a client of Wisdom Partners for a while, I wonder if you could just share how that's been helpful for you and for Adhera.
I actually think it's been very helpful, and I will again, mirror the opinion that I have gotten from other founders. I talk to founders on a pretty regular basis. And one of the things that I noticed and that we have in common, at least in the majority of the conversations that I have had, is the solitude of a founder when it comes down to the day-to-day activity. However, you are not alone in that you are part of an organization where you can share your misgivings, etc. What I hear from funders, and I feel the same way, is that when you're a funder, there's one moment where you don't have anybody that you can go and talk to. You are in a solitude. It's like being in a room. Everybody was having a dinner, and then the lights go out, and you are left there alone in that room. In that scenario, which I live on a daily basis, what you guys have done is be able to come back with maybe a flashlight or a candle and say, hey, I'm here while we figure out how we are going to make tomorrow happen. I believe that is I would call the top contribution that you, Josh, and your colleagues have brought to me. And I believe that founders need that because of the isolated nature of being a founder in a startup.
Yeah. Thanks, Ricardo. It's been a pleasure to sit or ride the roller coaster alongside you, to navigate the dark. We talk often about starting a company as like taking a trip through the wilderness. And at first, you don't even know exactly where you're going, but you kind of figure it out as you go. And then you kind of figure out how to get there, but you're still alone. And you still have to sort of navigate that wilderness without, with a janky compass.
Absolutely. And hence why entrepreneurship is not for everybody, and I think that is a separate topic that probably for another podcast, because I think that there's a lot of traits that are very common to founders. And it would be maybe part of another series of podcasts where you can explore, with all the experience that we some partners have with tons of founders that you're supporting, what are those traits that we as founders could look at and see where we can fine tune or enhance.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm so grateful that you took time to talk today. And I think a lot of people feel like you. They sometimes I say leading a startup is like being on a rowboat in the middle of the ocean during a hurricane. So just knowing there are other rowboats out there and they're going through a similar journey, I think is really helpful. Yeah, here at Wisdom Partners, we love working with seed and Series A founders because that transition is where the startup pinch happens. The demand is going up, but the demand for your time is going up faster than your available resources. And so you have to figure out how to make those ends meet to keep the momentum going before the funding is in the bank. And so we this process, and we love helping founders get over trying to save the day by being a hero and move on to building a team of heroes. So I know.
Well, let me just say, I think it's interesting that you mentioned the word heroes. I think that the biggest challenge and the biggest accomplishment of a founder is to turn a group of heroes into everyday satisfied employees, because being a hero is something very special, and you cannot build a company with continuous heroic activities. So my goal is not to build a team of heroes, but those heroes take us to a moment in time where the company now has the wherewithal to be able to operate in the normal waters. But yeah, I think in the beginning there is a lot of hard work, long weeks, but that's not different from the life that we live these days. And the last comment that I wanted to make is that I am extremely positive, and I believe that this work of being a founder has so many side benefits on a daily basis. The development of teammates, the development of partnerships, of people that you can see the twinkle in their eyes that they believe on that direction that you are taking. And that is so fulfilling. And that's why I do what I do.
Yeah. Thanks, Ricardo. And for our listeners out there, if you'd like to talk about this or something else, check out our website, wisdompartners.llc, or email us at FRT from Founder Real Talk, FRT@wisdompartners.llc. Send us a question you'd like us to address on a podcast or the blog, or just hit us up if you're a seed stage founder and would like to be on the podcast as well. We'd love to talk more. So that's all for today, everybody. Thanks for listening.